made to you so special? Nothing. I'm just a kid from Brooklyn. I'm from Brooklyn.
Brooklyn!
Were you scared of it? No, not at all, huh?
No, I'm from Brooklyn.
You're from Brooklyn, huh?
I just wanna rap. Okay, guys, happy October. It's the spooky season. It's my favorite time of the year. With the new release of Terrifier 3, I thought it'd be fun to rank all of Damien Leone's films, specifically his horror films. He did do some other films, and I'm really excited about doing this for October and getting this started. Before we get started, we got to go through my two rules. Rule number one is spoilers. I don't really plan on spoiling anything because these movies are pretty new. So mild spoiler warning, I don't plan on spoiling anything. Rule number two is, as always, this is a favorites list, not a best list. So the best way you can converse with me about my list is to show me yours through the comments section. Kicking things off at number 6, we have Frankenstein vs. the Mummy, came out in 2015. Reimaginings of these two classic horror icons do battle in a medical facility in a present-day setting. I like the look of the cursed pharaoh mummy and all that comes with it. But the 80s metal look of the Frankenstein's monster, complete with leather jacket, was less to be desired. Max Reiser plays Victor Frankenstein, and he just doesn't have the chops for such an important central role. His love interest Nyla, played by Ashton Lee, was adequate as she dealt with things on the mummy side. Despite some good kills with Leone's signature effects, I doubt I'll ever seek this out again, especially since it has a very long runtime that you're gonna feel every second of. Coming in at number 5 is HallOWS Eve, came out in 2013. This is billed as the first appearance of Art the Clown, but that's not entirely true, as he appeared in The Ninth Circle in 2008 and an earlier attempt also called Terrifier in 2011, both short films that Leone made to break into the business. A pair of kids return from trick-or-treating, spend the night with their babysitter, and one of them finds an old VHS tape in his goodie bag. They convince the babysitter to play it, and that's the setup for a horror anthology movie with Art the Clown at the center, similar to movies like Creepshow and Trick or Treat, but very low budge and a much darker tone. Art is played by Mike Gianelli, who does a good job, although he doesn't have the body and facial talents of David Howard Thornton, who would make the role his own down the line. Watching it after the fact, it feels like a rough draft with some shock value, especially with a scene involving a pregnant woman, but you could see the potential here with Leone and Art the Clown. Coming in at number 24 is Stream, came out this year, 2024. A Michael Levy project with Leone doing the effects. Levy was part of the team that brought you the Terrifier movies, and I got to meet both at various conventions. Levy pitches this as a horror movie for horror fans, made by horror fans, and it boasts an all-star team of horror greats that only a horror fan would recognize. Damn, I said horror fan a lot, didn't I? But I think the best thing going for it is the premise, which I think is rather unique and has the potential for a budding franchise. A struggling family decides to stay at a resort from their past, but something seems off as late that night the entire building is locked down, so a sort of online streaming competition is played with 4 players in cool masks that must kill everyone in the building in unique and interesting ways for points, with a secret society wagering on the results, similar to like Hostel or Squid Games. Although these are Leone's effects, they aren't the Terrifier kind, showing that he's not just a one-trick pony. The 4 players are actually quite different from each other. You've got a huge, large, muscular guy, You've got a brother and sister duo, with the brother being played by David Howard Thornton, and he's kind of a trickster kind of killer, while the sister is more of a baby doll style killer. Really cool. Kind of reminds me of the girls from the movie The Strangers. Some of the kills are downright jaw-dropping, especially when involving a game of tic-tac-toe. Out of the huge horror roster, only a few have actual roles, with Jeffrey Combs and Danielle Harris leading the way. Unfortunately, the rest are just cameos that give you a second to smile and reminisce. I really hope we get a Stream 2 one day with a bigger budget and more of the same. Coming in at number 3 is the original Terrifier, came out in 2016. It's a bare bones slasher movie, clearly focused on showing off Leone's effects and introducing Art the Clown again, in the hopes that he could become a horror icon in the vein of horror greats like Michael, Freddy, and Jason. Effects legend Tom Savini once said that the slasher kill is not unlike porn.
It's porno, really, isn't it? So the money shot in these slasher movies is the big kill.
And what Leone does is turn that shot, which usually lasts a few seconds, into multi-minute affairs. They're extreme, they're brutal, and Art, a mime clown, is laughing all the way, which is kind of unsettling at first. Two women encounter Art sitting in a pizzeria, and one decides to ridicule him. Big mistake, as he ends up terrorizing them shortly after in a building. One of them called their sister Vicky to come pick them up due to a flat tire, but she arrives far too late. The biggest scene has Art hanging the one that made fun of him upside down while the other one is forced to watch. And this is the only scene you need to watch in order to know if these movies are for you. This movie is extreme, it breaks all the rules, and Vicky ends up being the final girl, but not in the conventional way. Despite the pennies on the dollar budget, it gets a vastly improved production value compared to HallOWS Eve. You add Leone's effects, Thornton's interpretation of Art the Clown, and it developed a buzz and then a following in horror circles. And my runner-up at number 2 is Terrifier III, the newly released film. The newest installment totally delivers to its ever-growing group of fans, with the first being so dark and grindhouse and the second one leaning more towards fantasy. Leone finds a middle ground, but his ace in the hole is making it a horror Christmas movie. Survivors Sienna and her brother are suffering from severe PTSD. She's been in and out of mental hospitals and is staying with her uncle and his family for Christmas. Her brother's in college and he's a celebrity of sorts, garnering unwanted attention. Meanwhile, Art returns through Vicky, who takes a larger role, which is a surprise as there's an essential character missing. David Howard Thornton does his best performance as Art the Clown. His reactions to anyone that he encounters is priceless. Leone was inspired by the great many Christmas horror classics, but I thought it was a direct homage to Silent Night, Deadly Night, with him using an axe to set things off. Lauren Lavera also brings her best, despite not having that fantastic costume. She displays so many emotions as she struggles to hold on to her sanity. I always warn everyone I recommend these movies to that they're next level brutal. But Leone doesn't stop pushing the boundaries here. There are two scenes that are extremely controversial, but the fans just keep begging for more. We did get some backstory with Jason Patrick playing Sienna's father, but despite getting more insight, we're still left with more questions, but not to worry as Terrifier 4 is obviously happening. The movie has a 2-hour runtime, which is an improvement over Terrifier 2. Its pace is perfect. It's my favorite horror movie of the year, and it's a monster, pun intended. My lone negative is the soundtrack, which is massively inferior to Terrifier 2. I had my Shazam app ready, but never pulled the trigger. And my number one Damien Leone film is Terrifier 2, came out in 2022. The sequel adds a supernatural fantasy element, mysterious backstory, a new and interesting final girl, a killer soundtrack, even more lengthy kills, and a bloated runtime that you'll only feel if you're not a fan by now. You follow a family whose father died, but he has some sort of connection to Art the Clown. In Nostradamus fashion, he left a book of drawings and sketches, some of Art the Clown, some of things to come, and some of his daughter Sienna in a sort of Valkyrie angel armor. He also left her a sword, and in his honor, she decides to fashion the armor as a Halloween costume with the holiday just around the corner. Her younger brother is fascinated by Art the Clown and wants to go as him, which is kind of messed up, him being a serial killer and all. At the same time, Art is recovering from the events of the first movie in a laundromat washing his outfit and making friends with a little girl clown, which is clearly a figment of his imagination. Or is she? As I said, this is now a supernatural affair. Art and Sienna are set on a collision course with some really great kills and dream imagery reminiscent of the Elm Street movies. The movie sets everything up perfectly, but leaves a lot of questions unanswered, which frustrated some critics. I just figured they'd be answered in part 3, and not knowing does add some mystery. It's a slasher movie, and when it comes to slashers, I'm all about those kills. And there's so many to choose from. But the bedroom kill with one of Sienna's friends is definitely the highlight. I don't think it's been topped since. The addition of Sienna and her outfit and that kind of weird backstory really was what made the movie special. I had the pleasure of meeting Damien and most of the cast, but she was by far my favorite. I hope she becomes a huge scream queen in the years to come. The reason this movie beats part 3 by a hair is that fantasy element, which is something that I've always preferred. Leone said he was inspired by old sword and sorcery films like Conan and Beastmaster. You add a magic sword and that killer soundtrack, and it just feels more epic. Sienna and Art the Clown's battle at the end is just something you have to see for yourself. What can I say? I think it's the cat's pajamas. In conclusion, look, guys, when Terrifier 2 came out, I really loved it. I rushed to get autographs in Jersey when I found out the cast was going to be there. Guess what? There was nobody online. I was able to walk up to Damien and meet him and shake his hand. And then, not too long ago, a couple of weeks back, the lines were endless. The movies just keep growing. It's really picking up steam. And I'm really happy that I'm on the ground floor of this. I've got to meet the cast. I've got to meet the guys who are making these movies. They happen to be from Staten Island. We love our New York people, and we're going to support them. Are these movies for everyone? Absolutely not. I stress that every time I recommend these movies to somebody. Most times than not, they check it out and they're like, "Wow, that was really wild," but those were really fun movies. You guys are having a great October. I know I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm definitely gonna be bringing you some more content for the spooky season. So, from the city that never sleeps, from the borough of Brooklyn, peace, baby.
Down on Broadway. Even if it ain't all it seems, I got a pocket full of dreams, baby. I'm from New York.